What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cap Show. The Sweet 16 is finally here. I'm going to do some of my Sweet 16 picks. First and foremost, let's start off with Gonzaga, the first game of the night versus Arkansas. Look, Gonzaga, we look at their history. They were in the championship game last year. They came up short, and really they were on the verge, 20 minutes away from making history like the 1976 Indiana Hoosiers, coached by the great Bob Knight. But they came up short. But I expect Gonzaga to handle business versus Arkansas and win this game. Now, Arkansas, they do have a good backcourt. They have some good guards, fast, they're athletic. But I think, Gonzaga, their experience, and really some of their juniors and seniors have been in the big games before. Especially Drew Timme, the power forward for Gonzaga. I expect him to come out and have a great game. Now, there's some games where he doesn't necessarily show up on the scorecard, but, as far as getting your teammates involved, getting your teammates better, paying close attention to detail, that's the guy. And I think Drew's the X factor. If he plays well, I think Gonzaga is going to thrive on all cylinders, from the three-point shot, contesting shots, getting rebounds, offensive, defensive rebounds. So I like Gonzaga. I like Gonzaga all day in this matchup, so I'll go Gonzaga over Arkansas. Then we got Michigan versus Villanova. Villanova's coming in 5-point favorites, which it makes sense. Villanova's probably the better team right now, 100%. But I'm telling you what, dude, I really think Michigan, they're so underdogs, but I think Michigan, this could be an upset game here. And why? Because Michigan's big man, Hunter Dickinson, he's a beast, dude. Average over 18 points a game this season, getting a lot of boards. I think Michigan, they win. They got to win. If they win this game, they got to win in the inside. They got to win on the defensive rebounds, even the offensive rebounds, and really in the inside. You got to close out, and I think Michigan, yes, they do have their hands full in this matchup. Villanova, they got some great players, just like they always do. Villanova, they're on the East Coast, the Big East. They're really legit, but you know what? For some reason, I don't know what it is, but something's telling me to go Michigan in this pick. I think it's going to be super close. I think halftime Villanova will have like a 5-point lead, but I think Michigan's going to close the gap late in the second half, in the second half, and really just explode in. And I think Michigan's going to win by like barely. I'm saying 2 or 3 points. So I'm going to go Michigan with the upset over Villanova. Now, obviously, my real bracket's probably busted out at this point because, yes, my only hope is Duke Blue Devils. But, looking at this matchup, Villanova-Michigan, this is going to be a classic matchup. But I'm going to go Michigan with the upset here. I cannot wait. And then we got, speaking of my Blue Devils, speaking of them, dude, hey, they are in the Sweet 16. Like I said, the 26th-time Sweet 16 appearance for Coach K. And this is insane. And obviously, Coach K's last hurrah, they're playing against Texas Tech. Texas Tech, they got some good players. But I just think, yes, they're just fundamentally sound, disciplined on offense and defense when we talk about Texas Tech. But, speaking of Duke, they got the playmakers. They got the playmakers to run it all the way and really just run deep. And that's why I picked Duke. Not just because of Coach K, but some of their players that they got. Pacaro, this guy, 6'10", he will be in the NBA one day. He's the X factor for Duke. And I think, for opponents that are playing Duke, you gotta trap him. You gotta throw different stuff at him, or he will tear you up. He can drive on you. You can do a lot of different things. They got some great role players as well. Keels, he's nice. I expect him to go get the offensive boards for Duke. I just think Duke and Texas Tech, they're well coached, well disciplined on offense and defense. I think this is going to be a close game, but obviously I got to go Duke here. I got to go Duke, and then Duke's going to match up against Gonzaga, in the Elite Eight, and I'm going to go Duke. I'm going to go Duke close, and they're going to make the Final Four. And what do we know? Coach K, this is his last hurrah here. This is his last time that, he understands that, hey, the end of the road is near. I've been coaching for decades, winning 5 national championships. So, what else could Coach K do? You know what I'm saying? Like, straight up. So I think, Coach K and all the players in Duke right now understand this is it, dude. The legacy that Coach K did for Duke, that'll never be forgotten. I think in 100 to 200 years from now, people are going to look back and say, wow, dude, Coach K really revolutionized how to coach, how to coach different eras, from the 90s to the early 2000s, 2010s, then all the way up to past 2020. Now we're in 2022, and Coach K still doing it at the highest level. So shout out to Coach K and Duke. I'm going to go Duke. Picaro, he's the X factor. I think if he plays well into the tournament, they will go to the Final Four, into the championship game. Like I said, I picked them to win it all. So I'm going to go Duke over Texas Tech. I think this game will be close. It really will. And Texas Tech is favorite right now by 1 point, which is insane to me right now. I don't know what Vegas is thinking, but I'm going to go Duke Blue Devils. And then we got Houston versus Arizona. Arizona's 1.5 point favorites. Look, Arizona, obviously probably the most talented team that we're seeing right now. I mean, they got athletes from point guard to center. I just think, the X factor for Arizona is Benedict Mathurin. He's a beast, dude. This guy, I'm telling you what, and I said recently, he kind of reminds me of a D-Wade, like just the way he can get to the cup, the way he shoots, his athletic ability, his IQ of the game. I think Arizona, they will run deep if he continues to ball out. He dropped 30 last game, against TCU in overtime. Hit some big shots down the stretch. So shout out to Benedict in Arizona. Obviously, with Houston, on the flip side is Houston, they got athletes as well. They got athletes from point guard to center. I think they can full court press you the whole game. Whereas I don't think Arizona likes to do that, right? They like to save energy. But I think Houston, they're no joke here. And I think if Houston happens to upset Arizona, I do think Houston will run to the Final Four. I do think they'll win in the Elite Eight. Obviously, like I said, against Michigan, who I picked over Villanova in that Sweet 16 matchup. I just think if Houston happens to upset Arizona, I'm going to go Houston Final Four. But right now, what I'm seeing with Arizona, I got to go Arizona. Because of Benedict and some of their players that they got, I think they're really skilled and they're talented. Arizona, they're a heck of a team. So I'm going to go Arizona in a close one. Then we got Arizona versus Michigan right now. So I'm going to go probably Arizona in the Final Four. That's what I'm going to do. I just think watching Arizona in that overtime game against TCU, that really drew the straw for me. It was just like, wow, these guys can play. Not just Benedict, but they got some other great players as well. They got a good point guard, a good big man, and they're well coached and disciplined. So I like Arizona to go to the Final Four and really just run the table. And that'll be a great, right? Arizona versus Duke in the championship game. We're talking a couple, obviously first-round draft picks on both sides with Arizona and Duke. So I think that'd be good for college basketball. So I can't wait for that matchup. So that's where I'm going to go on the Thursday games. Then the Friday games. We got St. Peter's versus Duke. Obviously, Purdue is way favorite in this matchup. St. Peter's, really, no one's ever heard of them. This is a Cinderella story, a 15th seed, run to the Sweet 16. I think this is great for college basketball, dude. It just goes to show you that anything is possible. Even the underdogs, who aren't televised all the time, can run deep, can go all the way. So I think for St. Peter's, they're going to have to put pressure on the guards for Purdue. Obviously, I think for Purdue, Jaden Ivey, he's the X factor for Purdue. You got to score on these guards for St. Peter's. You have to. And yes, Purdue, they have great big mans. I would say big man, I would give the advantage to Purdue, absolutely. And Coach Painter, he's been at Purdue for so long now. And he grew up like 2 streets down from where I'm from, Poplar Street. 5305. You guys can Google it, but I'm telling you right now, obviously I'm rooting for Purdue. I'm rooting for Coach Painter. I think, what they got going right now is Purdue all day, but do I want to see an upset here? Do I want to see a Cinderella story go all the way? Absolutely. I'm rooting for both of them, but I would love to see St. Peter's with the upset. I would love to see St. Peter's go to the Final Four. That'd be great, right? A 15th seed going to the Final Four, beating Kentucky in the first round. I mean, dude, you can't even make a movie better than that. So I think St. Peter's right now, they have no pressure on them. So I think going into this game, I think it's going to be way closer than what the line is saying. We're at 12.5. I think, with St. Peter's, their guards, they're going to have to play great. They're going to have to play their best game, and they understand that. And I think for St. Peter's, the advantage there, obviously they don't have pressure, but I feel like they've been playing with each other for years, for like decades, since they were little. That's what it feels like, the chemistry there. So I think St. Peter's, this is a huge game for them, but ultimately I'm going to go Purdue. But I wouldn't be surprised if St. Peter's does get the matchup. Like I said, I think the guards overall are just a little bit better than Purdue's, but obviously Purdue's big mans are better than St. Peter's, so I'm going to go Purdue, but I would love to see St. Peter's with the upset. I really would. This game I'm probably not going to touch. It's so iffy to me, because we don't really see St. Peter's in the media. media. We don't see them on ESPN, so it's hard to decide. But I'm telling you, that's the recipe to beat Purdue. Not only that, but to beat North Carolina or UCLA in the next matchup in the Elite Eight. So I think, St. Peter's, they got the athletes to do it. And they got the recipe. But I'm going to go Purdue in that matchup. Shout out to Coach Painter. And then we got Providence versus Kansas. Kansas is 7.5-point favorites, and look at Kansas against Creighton. That was a close game, and I looked at Kansas. They're not the same Kansas team that we're used to seeing have dominant athletes. Yes, they have great athletes, but I'm talking, just being able to drop 30, 40 a game. Like we're used to seeing Kansas have great NBA players coming out of there. I just think Providence, what they got going right now, and what Providence can do on their backcourt, I think there's an X factor here. I really do. And I think Nate Watson, he's averaged over 13 points a game, the point guard for Providence. He's going to have the greatest game of his life. He really is. Kansas, they're 30-6 throughout the regular season. Now they're running deep. But nobody wants to see Kansas unless you're a Kansas fan, right? Because they're to me, I feel like they're always the number one seed in the NCAA tournament. Like every time Kansas, number one seed. It's just like, dang, dude, when is Kansas going to be like a 5 or 6 seed? Like, why are they always number one, dude? So obviously I'm going to root for Providence here. I'm going to pick Providence. I didn't see that much that stuck out to me when Kansas played Creighton. It wasn't like, oh, man, Kansas is going to win it all this year. No, it was just like, dude, they're trying to survive against Creighton. Okay, hit some big shots. I will give them credit for that. But I'm going to go Providence with the upset. And then we got one of the most anticipating matchups this year, North Carolina versus UCLA, dude. UCLA's 2.5-point favorites, and I'm getting a lot of insider. I wanted to go North Carolina, but a lot of the experts, they're picking UCLA. And UCLA, they've been battle-tested this year, and I think UCLA, they got the athletes, and they do. At this point in the whole Sweet 16, all teams have great athletes. I just think what goes over the top is paying attention to detail, hitting your free throws when you need to hit them, hitting every single free throw as a team. You can't miss a couple 2 or 3 free throws and then lose by, 2 or 3 points. You just can't do that. You got to hit every single free throw that's given to you. So I think UCLA, I'm going to go UCLA here. I think, why? Because a lot of the insider is going UCLA. Therefore, I'm going to go UCLA. I am. I think North Carolina, yes, they've had some ins and outs. They're a great team now. I want to be surprised if North Carolina wins. I think this is probably one of the toughest matchups, North Carolina and UCLA. It's just so hard to me. I think that and the Arizona-Houston matchup is tough. It's a tough matchup, but I'm going to go UCLA. And then we got Iowa State versus the U. Shout out to Iowa State. Last year, they were 2-22. This year, they're in the Sweet 16. They never gave up. So, obviously, I'm going to root for Iowa State. I want to see Iowa State run deep. And what I saw from Iowa State, watching them against Wisconsin is, man, these guys, they can play. They can play. They can score. They can play great defense. They can rebound. And what really stuck out to me is them not giving their opponents second chance opportunities, getting a loose ball rebounds. Iowa State typically always gets the loose ball rebounds, always hustles. So that's what I love about Iowa State. I love that. And then the U, they're no joke. They got some great players, great athletes, great backcourt, a couple of good shooters. But, I'm going to root for Iowa State. Now, I'm not saying, obviously Miami, they're probably the better team, better athletes, but that doesn't mean they're going to win the game. So I'm going to go Iowa State, just where they come from. 2-22 this past year to Sweet 16 and possibly the Elite Eight. So I'm going to go Iowa State. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they lose, and let's say if Miami does win. I think Miami could really go to the Final Four. I really do. It sounds crazy. It really does. So I think whoever wins this game is going to go to the Final Four, but I'm going to go Iowa State, then Iowa versus Providence. I'm going to go Iowa State in the Final Four. Isn't that crazy to pick Iowa State in the Final Four from this past year, 2-22 to the Final Four? Nobody saw this coming except the players and the coaches who believed in that program at Iowa State. That's the only them are the only people who believe in themselves right there. So I think I'm a believer of Iowa State. I think what I saw last week stuck out to me. Now, obviously, I think, like I said, Iowa State, Miami, whoever wins out of that matchup is going to go to the Final Four. So I'm going to take Iowa State. I want to be surprised if Miami wins and them go to the Final Four, but whichever team wins. But I'm going to go Iowa State in that matchup. I cannot wait, baby. But let's go back to the Purdue St. Peter's matchup. I think this is huge. I think Matt Painter, he's been at Purdue for a long time. I think, the experience-wise, obviously we lean towards Purdue. That's why Purdue's that big favorite. Purdue, they're playing a freaking 15 seed and Purdue's a 3 seed, you know? And not to mention Purdue back in December was a number 1 seed. So, like, dude, like, obviously Purdue, I think they are the better team. That's why I'm going Purdue. But like I said with St. Peter's, this is such a Cinderella story. You know, 15th seed. They beat Kentucky. They beat Murray State. Can they beat Purdue? I think it'd be crazy if St. Peter's goes to the Final Four. They beat Purdue. Okay, they beat Kentucky. Then they either beat North Carolina or UCLA to make it to the Final Four. St. Peter's, a small school like that, make it to the Final Four. That is crazy, dude. That'll be in the history books. They will be in the top 10, you know, upsets of just running deep, Cinderella stories. They have to be, dude. A 15th seed, you know, even to make it to the Sweet 16 is amazing to me. So I'm rooting for St. Peter's, but I'm going to go Purdue. But overall, looking at the Sweet 16, great games. I cannot wait. But obviously, I'm going to go Duke Blue Devils. I'm going Coach K. I'm going with what they have right now all the way, and Coach K settles off into the sunset. He retires after this year, his 6th national championship in college basketball. Hey, Coach K, what a time, baby. It's the Sweet 16. It's the Cloud with Cab show. Let's